But hi and hello, all StarCraft fans. We have a hell of a match. Spawning here to the bottom right. God, this takes me back. I feel like this is like 3 years ago, because this isn't a match we'd see in the ZvT Cup. This is the match we'd see in any cup, because both of these guys played in freaking everything. It is my honor to introduce the Blue Terran,
Polt.
And his opponent to the upper left, the Red Zerg, the one and only
Bly.
Now, I'm going to have to do a little bit of walking and talking while I explain this match and the players, because some of you might not be up to date, I guess we'll say. But let me make a tweet about this real quick, because I want to make sure people who are watching know that this is going on. Up next, Bly versus Polt. Okay, so Polt, for those who don't know, did have to do his military service. He left on a high note. He was one of the best Terran players in the game when he had to leave, and we missed him for years. And then he came back. But Polt did something really interesting when he came back that not a lot of other military post players did, and that's he actually committed to playing and getting better. Many times since his return, people have asked him to play in tournaments. Not just here on my stream, but also on his. And he's actually, I think he's got a tryhard command. I can't remember what the name of it is, but on his channel, he explains pretty clearly that he wants to get better at the game before he jumps back into competing. He doesn't want to jump back into it, lose a bunch of games, become disheartened, and then quit or something. Kind of like a lot of the other pros have done. Like, MMA was kind of in a similar boat where I think he came back and he tried to compete too early, and he lost a bunch, and that may have killed his motivation. That plus opportunities led to him being like an Overwatch League coach. So Polt's taking it very seriously. He's been improving steadily over time. I don't know if this is officially his first tournament since return, because I have not seen him compete in anything. But whether it is or whether it isn't, I gotta tell you, I'm very glad to have Polt back, because Polt was always one of the most iconic and very fun players to cast, and he competed in like almost everything. And that's where the nature of these weekly cups for ESL, I think, are going to bring back some of the hype for Starcraft. I know that when you think of big stuff for Starcraft 2, people get really excited for the big events, the BlizzCons, the IM Katowices. But what a lot of people also don't realize is only casual fans pop up once a weekend per year to watch those events. The real fan base is driven by the people who are constantly playing Starcraft, and Polt and Bly more recently actually, both stream Starcraft very regularly. As you know, Bly plays just about every cup he can get his hand on, doesn't matter what the region is. And Polt may do the same. But I bring all this up with reference to an old school reference of Hyun. Many of you should recognize that name. He came right out of the era that was Polt's dominance. But prior to Polt dominating the online scene, Hyun did. And a lot of what was really cool was watching Hyun win cup after cup after cup. He had a record at some point. I think no one's beaten it still to this point, which is consecutive cups won. And it added so much hype because on top of this, he was a really good player that performed well at offline events. So you just had this awesome legacy created that people like me still talk about in reference to today. But the hype of the online cups died out with WCS, and people were more concerned about hiding build orders and getting WCS points than winning some small cash prizing. What the ESL Pro Tournament scene has done here with these weekly cups is offered some small cash prizing. Let's be real, it's not that much considering what the hype of the tournament scaling is, but first place gets points. I think it's like 10 points or something that do count towards the new tournament scene. So it's essentially, if you want to put this in more layman terms, the same as WCS points. It'd be as if a weekly cup awarded WCS points instead of just WCS Montreal and the big stops. I think it's awesome. I think it's going to breathe a lot of life back into the scene, obviously with 3 cups a week. But on top of that, I think it's going to build some awesome stories that are going to make these players so much more fun to follow. I mean, granted, we already love Bly. If you're on Base Trade TV, you hear me gush about him all the time. Good, for better, for worse, Bly's a great player to have on your stream. He gives you entertaining games. And I don't think that's going to change here versus Polt. But Polt's opening with a fusion core, and did Bly see that? He did. Okay. Good scout there. He's being active on the map with the Zerglings as well, but there are Hellions and a wall at the front, so there's not a lot he's going to be able to do with what he has at the moment. Oh, there we go. Somebody's quoting Polt's thing for me. It says he wants to get to 6.5k MMR by the end of January. That's awesome. I'm glad he has goals like that. I say this very, very seriously. All the memes about invite Polt to tournaments aside, I really do want to be able to invite Polt to tournaments. But I also know that he wants to accomplish this like one step at a time. He wants to walk before he can run. And I respect the hell out of that. So I'm glad we get a sneak peek today, and I hope we'll see more in the future. But hopefully that, I'm sorry, I know a lot of that's not talking about the game, but hopefully that catches you guys up with all the stuff that's been going on recently, because I know some people don't follow all of these events and announcements so closely, or the player streams, for example. Bly kills a couple of Hellions on the other side of the map by the looks of it. Or no, Marines? Yeah, those corpses were definitely Marines. And he causes some chaos here on the front lines. Oh, I love that he loaded the SCVs to save them. That was a cute move. But for Bly, none of this was committed. None of this was going to do a lot. And he's already building Spore Crawlers, an excess of Spore Crawlers too, to make sure that Battlecruisers don't do too much to him. Now, if it was no Hellions, the Roaches wouldn't be as necessary. But I love what Bly's doing with this. By getting across the map with the Roaches, he's going to cause a lot of aggression, forcing Polt to not send the Hellions into the third base or the natural mineral line. This in turn gives Bly freedom to focus on the Battlecruiser at home. And while these Roaches probably won't even break the wall, much less cause game-ending damage, they've prevented Polt from doing damage to him. It is best defense, is a good offense in the most raw and basic form. Now, it does actually break the wall here. I didn't think this would be the case. Polt's actually going to abandon ship in the natural. Tanks up on the high ground. There's no bunker over here, which does suck a bit, but once the Battlecruiser comes home, it'll clean it up. So up until the Battlecruiser gets back, for Polt, it's all about crisis management. Minimizing workers lost. Losing Hellions, losing a tank, it sucks, but it's not going to be the end of the world for him, because he can remake those things as long as he has an economy behind this. And we should note that while Bly is moving towards... Oh, that's not a drone, excuse me. Well, he's got 3 bases. Polt's also got 3 command centers. More notably, 3 orbitals already done. So with Mules band-aiding the few SCVs that died to this, Bly did not cause a lot of direct damage. In fact, the income is not even that badly upset by this. But through it, he gets a huge worker lead. He is now saturating his third base fully. The fourth base has just begun. So while this didn't do a lot of damage, it did do, in a weird way, a lot of defense. And now, Polt's kind of stuck with a small army and not much economy to work with right now. Also, we got a donation a few moments ago. I'm sorry, I really want to finish my thoughts because, as you guys know, I'm super all over the place and a bit ADD. But Maple Leafs donated $9.56 to the stream today. He says, Rifkin, for these many years, I have been a Subway champion alongside yourself. However, recently I have been churned. Mr. Sub all the way. The revolution has begun, my fellow Canucks. Long live Mr. Sub! I've never even heard of Mr. Sub. I would be willing to give it a shot because I love sandwiches. But it's going to be really hard to beat Subway for me, man. The Subway's got that nostalgia. All right, Polt's got some medevacs, some Marines, some Marauders. They're hitting up the right side. The Battlecruiser's causing a little bit of a problem here, but between Spore Crawlers and Queens covering the bases, there's not that much room for this Battlecruiser to do much. And it's worth noting Polt did not invest in like a second Battlecruiser or Yamato cannons or anything of the like. This is just a Battlecruiser. It's going to cause some annoyance. More importantly, it'll be a huge distraction and a threat that Bly will have to constantly respond to and not ignore. That takes away some very precious attention span, because for Polt, a Battlecruiser is not a very attention-heavy unit. You kind of set it and try not to forget it. Because you just tab back over a minute later. Oh, it's still got 100 health. Teleport out of there, right? Okay. Not as plain and simple as that. But you guys get what I'm trying to say with this one. What's another hatchery? Oh, scouting a macro hatchery is actually a little scary for Polt. Bly is going to have a lot of larvae and a lot of Zerglings to work with here as he supports his heir. Aw, Stacy Rizzy Roy! Thank you very much for the 28-month resub.
Can you smell what the Stacy Roy is cooking?
Hey, it's my favorite streamer. Right back at you. We have rapid reignition system on the way. Polt might be the first player to actually go for this on purpose in a long time. But this is actually a really cool upgrade that I feel more players should go for. Essentially, it changes the way the cooldown versus the duration use of the boost on the medevac works. You're essentially just, you know, I even complicatedly explained it. You have 3 seconds of downtime with boost is what it basically comes down to. It lasts 6 seconds. The cooldown is 9, but it starts as soon as you pop it. So there's only going to ever be 3 seconds at any given time where these medevacs can't move at maximum boost speed. And that's huge for escaping a player who's going for Mutalisks. That's huge for trying to outrun bad positioning because you get swarmed by Banelings. This fight at the top is not too bad for Polt, but he's not going to be able to stay. He knows it too. He picks up, he falls back. The big damage is over here. Flies had to respond to everything in the main base. Now has to pull everything over to the rightmost side where these drones are getting annihilated. 12 dead. The Lings and Bailings are here finally to push this off, but that medevac drop here is getting healed up, and they're going to run right up into this base in a hot second. But Bly knew this would be the punch 1, punch 2 combo, so he's already on his way back to defend this. Boosting away with the medevacs. Like I said, he should be able to outrun these mutas. He'll lose one of these medevacs, I think, at most. If he loses all 3, I'd really be shocked. But look, here's boost off cooldown again. That's the upgrade. That's the difference of 3 medevacs dying versus 1. And it's so cool. And it's such a not commitment of an upgrade, so I don't know why we don't see it more frequently, but maybe it's just because everyone's playing mech nowadays. Who knows? Regardless, Polt survives. It's actually an unload up here on the high ground, too. Battlecruiser just kind of cruising around. I was going to say cruising, but I feel like that's low-hanging fruit. We have a Thor on the way to try and help maybe deal with the mutas, but I think Polt's macro, this is what I'm loving watching. We all know how Bly is as a player. There's no way you are watching this game and you've never heard of Bly before. He's good, but Polt's making him look bad, and that is so impressive. Yeah, Roaches getting squashed out there in the front line. Same with the Ravagers. Drones not rebuilding their gas properly. The Spore Crawlers here might take down the medevac. I mean, this Mutalisk count is huge, but as long as Bly splits these and doesn't group up and fight the Marines in one bad engagement or over-dedicate to a Thor, this army is the ultimately harassing army. And with ground support from Zerglings in quite high numbers, there's a good chance he could float right over Polt's army. And Bly will be so busy killing with Banelings, he won't be able to catch the mutas. So what's this Cure's been doing it recently? That's fine. I've actually cast quite a few Cure games actually within the last 2 weeks, but most of them have been TVTs where you probably wouldn't go for that upgrade. So it's kind of funny because if Cure has been doing that, I just would literally never know because every Cure game I feel has been like TVT. Cure Vistasia, by the way, I'm gonna recommend it. I'm gonna selflessly, shamelessly shout this out. GBL Season 3 and the IM Katowice qualifiers, both up on my YouTube. Both TVT series were an absolute blast to watch. I'm not saying this for views. I'm not saying this for gimmicks. I don't care if you don't actually like the video, but you need to check out those games because they were just some wild TVTs. And somehow in 2 separate best of 3s in 2 separate tournaments, Cure and Tager gave it the best games of each of those tournaments. No doubt about it. Maple Leaf says apparently there are Mr. Subs in Vancouver. I'll have to look this up later. I've just never heard of it. I'm not saying that it doesn't exist. I've just never heard of it. Or maybe I've never thought to go there because I had Subway. And I just like I just ignored it by accident. I don't know. No, like Polt's siege tank count, pretty terrifying. 2 Thors with +2 weapons can actually 1 volley down the Mutalisks. We're not there just yet, but Bly's on the verge of being in a lot of trouble. Polt does go really deep on the creep. That's going to allow the Banelings to squash. Oh no, for Bly. Look at that. For 1 brief second, he thought about committing forward and pulled back immediately. And in that 1 second, it still wasn't enough because half the Banelings that had survived pop off to the siege tanks after that. 1 small mistake against a player like Polt, who might not be in his prime, but is still fighting really damn well. Look at the resources lost. Look at the army graph. Bly is having a lot of trouble right now. And having lost these outer bases, he is replacing them and he is taking the new hatcheries, but he's still lost money through all of this. So he's not overwhelming Polt. And he's not in a position where you can just throw bodies at him as Zerg players normally do. Polt, on the other hand, through his cost-efficient trades, has taken some very notable leads. Oh, and +2 weapons is so close to being done for the Thors. That is a big game changer for the mutas. I can't begin to stress this enough. You see how the mutas right now are getting away with like 1 HP from that splash damage? That changes with +2 weapons. And Polt's oh, can we actually just talk about how far Polt ahead is in the game right now? He's actually preparing for the next stage of the game that Bly is not prepared to go for yet. We have Ghosts starting up, but there's not going to be mutas or Broodlords anytime soon. Bly is going to be stuck on this tech for a long time, and I don't know if he can even get out of it. Attacking the main base does pick off some SCVs. There's gonna be some tech options there too. Possibly deny the +3 armor, maybe the building armor. Denying building armor is not that big of a deal, I guess. It would affect the mutas more than anything else. But Bly's not been across the map in a significant amount of time. He's not been pressuring the buildings. The building armor, weirdly enough, is not that important for Polt, despite how good of an upgrade it is. What is going to be a big deal is, oh, there we go. Those Thors, like I said, popping off. 2 volleys is all it takes with +2 weapons. I think it's not until mutas have +3 armor that changes again. I don't remember the dynamic, to be honest. You don't see it happen very often. Usually if a player starts building Thors, the Zerg player stops building mutas, but probably already has a considerable amount of them on the field. I do like this though. The Ling's trying to get on top of it. Some friendly fire from the tanks not helping out, but the tanks exposed in the back line. The mutas should be able to clean up a fight as long as they don't stack against the Thors. That's where he's going to start splitting. Oh my god. He loses a large chunk of mutas, and that's going to be enough for him to tap out. GG. Polt takes game number 1. And they should be wearing off right about now. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the ESL Pro Tournament Open North America Weekly Cup number 1. Esquire question mark? There's such a mouthful for that. But spawning here to the upper left side of the map, he's currently up 1-0. We have the blue Terran player.
It's Polt.
And to the bottom right, the European Zerg. It's
Bly.
Now, those were pretty bad intros, but to be honest, I was fighting a hiccup through both of them. Maddie Make 99 asks a fairly good question in the chat. Sorry if you get this a lot, but I don't really get what ESL means. It's a cup on top of tournaments we already have. Does this replace GSL? No, so for those who don't know, if you're more unfamiliar with things, ESL is an organization, long-standing, covers multiple games. Dota 2, CSGO, you name it, right? They cover everything in big scales. They are behind the big IEM events. ESL stands for the Electronic Sports League. ESL is just the company that owns, controls, hosts, organizes all of these. As far as the tournament goes, the ESL Pro Tournament is replacing the WCS system. So rather than have WCS Montreal, now we'll have the ESL Pro Tournament at DreamHack Montreal, if that makes sense. It doesn't really change. It just adds more and lays out a 3-year plan. And instead of calling them WCS points, they're now ESL points. Well, I don't know what they're calling them officially, but that's kind of my quick analogy there. And the benefit of these weekly cups is, unlike anything Blizzard has ever done before, they do offer small point values to add towards your quote-unquote ESL points. So in a hypothetical, somewhere down the line, we're talking October, September, it's getting towards the end of the year, we're trying to figure out who's on top. That's easy to tell. You know, when players like Serral win everything, there's such a big lead ahead of everyone else. What doesn't often get talked about is the cutoff point. And in every year, especially the BlizzCon cutoff, a lot of those point differences were the difference between, say, 8th and 4th place at a WCS sub. And you have some players who get kind of cut out, and there's just nothing they can do about it. However, if you're grinding these cups every week... I got too much money, thank you, Logic Soldier. If you're grinding these cups every week, 10 points here, 10 points there, it adds up. And I don't think that you need to win every single one of these, but these weekly cups and the reward for consistent play could very well be the difference of who is the last person into the tournaments on the bigger scale. On top of this too, I talked about like storylines and all these other cool things, but I talked about this during the Korean Cup, and I want to emphasize this again now, especially with players like Polt and Bly. Bly has been consistent throughout the entire year of his Starcraft career. He's never winning, but he's also not really constantly losing big tournaments, first place, second place, etc. Polt, same category, I'm sure, as he approaches, I guess, maximum velocity for his MMR. Oh, he's playing very safe this game, by the way. Not having gotten to scout and knowing the type of player Bly is, he's actually put down a blind bunker, anticipating some sort of all-in. Usually Roach Ravager. But I think that what sucks is we've had this happen in the past, and I mean no disrespect to anyone I'm about to list. So I'm going to actually, you know, I'm not going to use names for this. I'm going to use hypotheticals so we don't shoot fire or shoot shots at anybody, okay? You'll have a Protoss player who, say, wins something in spring, and then come BlizzCon in the end of the year, they are actually not nearly as good as they were. The patches have changed. Maybe they got more focused with school. My point is, who's the best in the game, quote unquote, is constantly changing. And I think that if we were to see somebody actually get into a big event based on points they won from these weekly cups, not only is that more deserving, I think it's more accurate, because you'll know that they constantly showed up and they constantly played through the whole year, and they didn't just get like a fluke victory at the patch for Protoss at WCS Spring or something. Again, these are all hypotheticals. I'm not actually referencing anything directly. So I think that these weekly cups are great. I doubt we'll cover every single one of them that ever comes out, but if I have free time or we're not scheduled for stuff, you bet I'm going to jump on stuff like this. Oh, Firebrick is informing me they're actually called EPT circuit points. I hope that's not the case because that's such a mouthful. But whatever they're called, whether they are EPT circuit points, ESL points, whatever the case may be, we all know what they are. The points that basically let people know how everyone else is doing. Also, we got another donation. I gave a brief thank you, but I would like to read out the message. Logic Soldier attached to it. Again, thank you for the $5 holler. Count me in for some late night shenanigans. Excellent. We actually had some pretty epic Beasts of the Hills over the last couple of weeks of streaming. But I'm also like at my wit's end with you guys. When you guys started spelling words with your buildings in the last one, that was the last straw for me. Well, we'll definitely play something tonight for sure. Mutas again from Bly. This is a very Bly thing to do. Bly, the thing is, there's actually a lot of things you could say is a very Bly thing to do, and it's because he plays so much. He does so many strategies. So much of what he does is normal. But usually what Bly likes to do is go 6 to 8 mutas and harass. And while he uses the harassment kind of like the cover of darkness, he actually builds up real units and real army and real expansions behind it. So it's going to come down to how well Polt does at keeping the mutas from getting out of hand, while Bly builds up this very real army behind it. So it wasn't Roach Ravager all in, and the bunker up here got salvaged, but still, it kind of shows you that Polt knows the type of player Bly is, and knows to be afraid of particular aggressive moves that Bly pulls off. That makes me very worried for Bly. I mean, the thing is for Bly, unfortunately, everyone does know how he plays. There's no element of surprise there. But it doesn't necessarily always make it easier to play against him. In fact, you see, Polt handles the mutas really well, and some Lings almost get in. Like, Bly just finds openings. He's infuriating to play against, and I love watching him for it. Muta's also trading out very well with the low count of Marines. If he can deny combat shields, that's going to really leave a mark on Polt. It's not the same as denying something like Stim, but you can see the priority here is so important that all of the SCVs get pulled. And that Tech Lab, I wish I could pause and look. I think that thing was seriously like within double digits of HP. So it almost goes down. But while this happens, the mutas curve and they kill more SCVs. Polt moves across the map with 2 drops and starts cleaning up creep. Baneling's speed is very close to being done, and a small amount of Banelings with speed on creep can absolutely handle this drop. Interesting follow-up question. Nikos13 asks, is this weekly tournament going to bring more traffic towards StarCraft 2 as a whole? To be honest, that is to be determined. StarCraft does seem to have a very finite viewership. Like, I would say on average, there's about 4,000 people looking to watch StarCraft at most given times. I know this because if I have 2,000 viewers, usually you'll see other people with the other 2,000. Or if I have 1,000 viewers, you'll see somebody else with the other 2,000. The point is, it's not a lot of people who watch StarCraft very actively. There's a lot of people who watch StarCraft on YouTube, and that's a whole nother story. But my point is, I think right now StarCraft has a very finite amount of viewership. So absolutely, without question, yes, viewership will increase. But the real question isn't will it, it's more like how much. And that is what I'm truly curious about. We're in a really blessed period right now. If you guys are unaware of StarCraft 2's history, that's fine. Here's where we're at right now. You've got people like the CEO of Shopify, not just streaming StarCraft, but tweeting about it semi-regularly. You've got people like CDN the Third. We've had Casually Explained. We've had really high-profile guests start playing this game, bringing in tons of viewers who may then branch off and look for other streams. I don't know. Shout out to C's viewers, by the way. I don't know if we got any in the chat tonight. Love that guy. And on top of this, we get an announcement for 3 years of StarCraft 2. That means for once, for the first time, and I'm not exaggerating, for the first time in 10 years, StarCraft 2 players can actually commit to the game rather than guess whether they should go back to school or not because they don't know if StarCraft will be here next year. Because that's the question everyone's been asking. That's what team owners have to ask too. They don't know if it's worth investing into because the next year, we don't know what's going on with StarCraft because Blizzard doesn't announce it until it's way too late. So 3 years of stability, high-profile guests, and beyond that, just a lot of tournaments. We are actually probably in the best part of StarCraft 2 that we've seen since its peak years ago. So I really think it's up and up from here. But the question I have goes back to the original, what should have been the question of how much is the up and up? I think what's fascinating is there are a lot of people who do watch and love StarCraft. They just don't watch it actively. And I know this because you'll see huge Dota 2 and CSGO pros tweet about big events that are happening with StarCraft. But that's it. This is a very nice run by the way. Banelings open the door, the Lings get in, but they don't cause the damage Bly was hoping for, unfortunately. But this goes back to the credit of Polt, man. Look at this. Not only does he defend like an absolute champ, to the bottom he sets up a double drop ready to go for the attack. I gotta give it to Polt. I really had no clue what he was gonna look like coming into this. I think Bly is one of the best players we could have possibly measured him up against to see what kind of state of Terran Polt is in. I gotta tell you guys, I'm just shocked it's not already 6.5. Like he wants to hit that goal before the end of January. I'm watching this game thinking, how are you not already there? And then I remember he probably hits a lot of Protoss on the ladder. Drilling Claws. I like this quite a bit, actually. Drilling Claws is going to be... Oh, I don't know why that took me to the armory. Drilling Claws, there you go, is going to be really effective at helping gamble with the Banelings and Zerglings. Sometimes Widowmines can get 34 kills in a single shot, and sometimes they get 1. It's a little bit sporadic, but they are kind of set 'em and forget 'em units, so you don't have to worry about focus firing them like you do with, say, a siege tank. This will give Polt a lot more freedom to focus on microing his Marines, something historically he has been always very good at. Oh, that's annoying. Bly may have not realized Drilling Claws was done, and I think his justification was, well, there's a Widowmine here, I know about it, I'll just let it pop off and then kill it afterwards. But it didn't get to do that. It stays cloaked while burrowed after those upgrades are complete. Oh no, Nathanius got knocked out by Dr. Ryan. He says, quote, Ryan Mass Gateway pushed my poop in a few games in a row, so I'm out. Oh, it's a bummer, man. I'm glad we got to cast the game you won, though. Thank you for letting us cast you again, Nate. I don't know if you're going to go cast the rest of these matches or just stream, but good luck with whatever you're doing tonight, man. Top right, we do have that push from Polt. It's got Thors with it to kind of escort the Marines. Oh, but the Widowmines are unburrowed at the start of the fight. However, Bly's also really clever. He tries to run right past the Widowmines, hoping to drag the shots on top of the army. It doesn't quite work out for him. Polt splits those Marines to the north side really well. Bly almost takes the fight. But let's not forget, Bly's still fighting over here. This has still not been cleaned up. This, however, is a big dedication. If Bly loses these 14 mutas, that is most of the money he has spent in this game. That's not really something he can necessarily afford to lose right now, despite how much damage it tries to do. This did knock down a few SCVs, but we should note it actually wasn't very many. Economically speaking, Bly hardly scratched the surface of Polt. Army to army, though, Bly took a pretty good fight considering what's on the map. Oh, nice. Gets the Thor and the medevac with that shot from the Queen. Mutalisk should be able to intercept up here. Polt doesn't have the medevac boost again, so he doesn't have freedom. Ooh, these mutas! He doesn't have the freedom to chase these down as easily, or excuse me, escape from the Mutalisk as easily as he did last game. Sorry, I'm all over my place on this one. Is there friendly fire in Stream Raiders? God, I hope not. No, I'm pretty sure there is not. Confirmed. Maybe that's why we all like Stream Raiders so much. Because it's a game that doesn't have friendly fire where your own units dick you over. God knows I hate playing Terran for those exact reasons. Alright, the hatchery there gets sniped. The back and forth has been a lot closer this game. Not just in terms of actual units lost, but also in terms of resources lost. Wait, hold up. How do you lose 9999 and then 1 on the gas? That doesn't seem accurate to me somehow. 7 times 3 is 21, maybe? Get some weird 3 cancels in there? I don't know. The Mutalisk count for Bly still reigns in pretty hard at 23. As you can see, he has invested into these with the +2 weapons. I mean, he's going to want more of these if he can get away with them. But we're at the stage of the game where it's Hive Tech. And mutas are not necessarily as, we'll say, attractive of an option. But they're definitely good to use. Like, don't give these away, but don't build more, right? This is where you're starting to think about the Ultralist transitions. This is where you're starting to think of the Broodlords. This is where, if you're TLO, you're probably thinking about Lurkers. This run by is gonna be really nice. A lot of SCVs are building depots as we speak because Polt was feeling a bit burned with supply block with the depots on the wall going down. So Bly catches a few more SCVs than he might have normally because they were all building at the time. Oh, some very annoying changelings mixed in there too. Funny enough, there's been no crazy big Baneling attack though this game. Like for all the lings that have been made, almost 200, there wasn't that many Banelings. All the gas in this game has really gone towards the mutas. I like what Polt's doing though. He's on 3-3, so he starts building building armor and high Zagato tracking. That's going to benefit these planetary fortresses in a big way, especially because Bly is playing heavily with lings. Ooh. There's Widow Mines here to watch out for. Got to be careful with those. Thor's pushing back too. It looks like Polt somewhere else on the map killed about 6 drones. I think it's this medevac bouncing back and forth. Realistically, not that much damage to Bly, especially because comparatively he's lost quite a bit. Bly's starting to get those economic leads, but gotta be so careful. There's so much going on the map right now from both sides. You don't want to lose 3 medevacs full of units to these mutas. You also don't want to lose the mutas to the Thors. It's a pretty delicate balance, but he does split on top of the Thor. Thor splash damage. Boy, I almost messed that word up. Thor splash damage only hits a very small radius. So if your mutas aren't clumped basically on top of each other, you're not going to eat much splash damage. Bly's investing in 13 more mutas right now, which I find absolutely wild, by the way. I was waiting for the magic Widow Mine shot. There was a game I cast recently of Vindictive vs. Bly where it was right here. A Widow Mine killed like 38 Zerglings over here. Here we go. Widow Mine's popping off in the lings, so they don't actually have the surround that they wanted to, but the Thors don't last long because there's a lot of units. And this goes right back to what I was talking about when we cast Nathanius' game earlier. Thors are really good units, but not against a lot of units. And that's where these lings and banlings are really shining through. Contamination on the production structures coming out of Bly. This cuts out the reinforcements from Polt in a big way. What little is coming out is going to get camped. Huge mule drop here towards the space. Did Bly see that? If he did, the mutas are going to kill all of them. I guarantee it. Oh, hold on. Unless he's distracted. Over here, Marines get to the mineral lines. Drones start going down. Base over here on the left side getting compromised. Building armor, unfortunately, not helping too much because there's just nothing to fight back against the lings right now. Production completely compromised. Command center dead in the main. Bly is running away with this game. GG from Polt. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go to game number 3. Whatever that break was over. And Maple Leafs just gifted out 5 subs to the community. Maple Leafs, do me a favor. If you weren't here at the start of the stream to hear this, I want you to go to your email and check the receipt that Twitch sends you. The one that says like, oh, you know, you gifted 5 subs here. It costs $27 or whatever. I want you to read that email in full. But more to the point, what Maple Leafs just did was he unlocked bombs for those of you playing Rally. And for those of you not playing Rally, just a quick little look over here. Do me a favor. Just scroll down. Bomb the boss real quick. Okay? It does big damage. You don't have to commit to playing, but you unlock bombs when people gift subs or cheer bits. I'd really appreciate it if you take a second just to use your bombs, if nothing else. But game number 3 is afoot. And while the alerts play off in the background, to the bottom left side of the map, we have the Blue Terran. It is
Polt.
And to the top right, the Red Zerg.
Bly.
This is a tough one for me, guys. This really is. Especially because we saw the first 2 games. If I were to have just joined game number 3 with no knowledge of how the pacing of this game went, or this series, I would have assumed Bly did 2 all-ins that failed miserably, or rather 1 all-in that failed miserably and 1 all-in that worked. But that's not actually how this went. Bly played macro versus Polt in both of the games. There was no Roach all-in or Nidus Swarm to the main base. Bly, with like the utmost respect maybe, is just playing pure macro games versus Polt. And I don't think this is a terrible decision. Obviously, it won him one of the games. But it's more impressive to me because it's not relying on some gimmick. It's actually just playing straight up. And Polt's proving to be a pretty good player to play against. So this, for me, is just a coin flip in terms of who I would possibly call to finish this series out. We should also highlight that this is a single elimination tournament, meaning there is no second life to fall back to. So once you lose, you are in fact out. And I believe someone else will have to look this up and confirm for me. I believe only the top 8 get points. So if you get knocked out really early, you're not going to have much of an opportunity to get those ESL Pro Tournament circuit points. Did we just call them circuit points? Diet Soda says, Base Tray TV, you need to give compliments to Ronin of Dreams and Akuma de Diablo. They redeemed gratuitous. That was yesterday morning, and we did that. Also, it's really difficult to give... when somebody is really nice all the time on stream and you're regularly being nice to them, it's hard to give them extra compliments without it sounding super sarcastic. I didn't even think about that when I made that redemption reward, but I'm now kind of aware of it. He didn't redeem it. Oh, right. There's like that checklist thing you have to click as like redeemed or rejected. I'm still getting used to the new stuff. I gotta work on that, boys. I'm sorry, everybody. Working on that. For Bly's opening, you'll note that he actually went for the third hatchery without investing too much. He pulled off of gas as well, so there was not going to be a follow-up quick roach warren or a fast failing nest. Really just wanting to pump out as much mineral income as he can, maximizing the rate at which he gets the saturation on 3 bases and then run away with the economy. Or at least that's the goal most of the time. Ling's checking for a third. Speed's done. If they catch the Reaper, like if it was coming home, it would certainly die. That high ground positioning is super annoying. He actually gets a kill from that too, which is really nice. But speaking of really nice, IXGL, thank you for the 220 assorted bits. It's like getting 2 donuts and a bunch of Timbits. Thank you, man. Fusion core coming down for Polts. Battlecruiser opening. You know, it's great. I love this. There was a meme on Starcraft a while back about battlecruisers where it's like, you know, oh, the battlecruiser. Or no, excuse me. You know that Terran unit, the early game harass unit? And then in the same sentence, like, you know that Terran unit, the late game unit? It's like the battlecruiser. It's the same thing. I really do like where battlecruisers are at in the game, though. But it's worth noting that this doesn't always mean a battlecruiser. They put a lot of tech options on the fusion core off of the tech lab with the starport. For example, the medevac boost that we had seen earlier from Polt in game number 1, as well as Liberator range, and of course Yamato cannon. So when you go for this, it doesn't mean you have to go for a battlecruiser. It actually just unlocks a lot of cool tech. But even if you open with a Banshee, or if you open with a Raven, well, maybe not a Raven because that costs too much gas, you can still just build a battlecruiser. Because as we've seen multiple times, be it from somebody on the lower scale of things like Nathanius or the higher scale of things like Polt, battlecruisers can be incredibly cost effective. It's kind of like swarm hosts in a way. Well, not at all, because swarm hosts are total bullshit and they are free. And anyways, moving on from my balance winding, it's that same idea though, where they can just be really cost effective. They don't have to be this unit that is a lot of damage in 1 second. And Diet Soda, no, not Diet Soda, Diesel, my man. Thank you very much for the 300 bits. Rifkin, you dick, I just read the email. Yeah, if you guys, anyone who does use Twitch Prime to sub to the channel. So if you buy a sub or if you pay to gift somebody subs, read the email receipt. We went over this at the start of the stream, but now we have a lot more people here. After this game's done, I'm going to explain that email, Maple Leafs. It's honestly, it's a funny explanation, but we'll get to it later because it'll take a little bit of time to go over. Now the battlecruiser and the Banshee, I mean, the Banshee survived and came home. This will be an easy hold against the Roaches. Even the Hellions are getting some really good damage in here with that splash, making it even easier to execute with the Banshee and the battlecruiser. So Bly trades out. He kills a couple of units worth of minerals, but ultimately loses more, and this wasn't super worthwhile for him. If he had caught Polt before third base was done and was able to deny some of the wall, maybe that'd be different. But that's not a wall. That is not a wall. I don't know if you guys just caught that. The hell you went through the depot of the mineral lines. That's a little awkward. But it is a really tight choke, so it'd still help against Zerg attacks nonetheless. What, 2 donuts and a bunch of Timbits? How expensive are those in BC? No, sorry, I just meant because he cheered like 2 100 bits and then a bunch of 1 bits. So they're like little itty bitty Timbits. Side note, I love Timbits, but I'm trying to cut sugar. Well, not out, but I'm trying to reduce the amount of sugar in my diet. So I haven't had Timbits in a hot minute. God, those things, you just eat like 100 of them, honestly. For those who don't know what I'm talking about, if you're American, it's like donut holes, I think is what you guys call them. We have the medevac upgrade coming down. I love this. I really want to see more of this in pro play. I think, especially when you're playing against a player who might be going Mutalisks, this upgrade is more valuable than normal. It's not as important if your opponent's sticking to mostly Lings on the ground, but Bly is going for a Spire, and Bly has, through 2 games already, shown Mutalisks. It makes a lot of sense that Polt would go for this here in game 3. Even if you're sounding sarcastic, I gotta admit the fulfillment of gratuitous yesterday was literally far, far, far better than I had expected. Absolutely great. Thank you, Ronan. I'm glad you're appreciating
Mom,
it.
it's not a phase. I was born.
Shut up when you go back to your crappy stream where your microphone peaks all the time and you don't know how to sound not British. Thank you, Hello Circling, though, for the 301 little bits. Is that a cute little corgi? Corgo? Wait, what? I want corgi emotes.
I like you a lot.
Terminator gifted a sub to RBB Shard. Thank you for that. Oh, still falling back. Diet Soda gifted a sub to I Answer to No One. Thank you guys for that. Awesome support to the community. Giving people those cool emotes. Now, the mutas were not the priority for Bly this game, as it's very clear. He's gone for them afterwards. Oh. But he also didn't focus on doing a lot of damage. Look at the difference on the mini map here. This is really the key difference of where Bly's prioritized himself. He's taken a lot of map control. Zen's a really crappy map, by the way. Getting map control with this many creep tumors on a map like Zen is huge. If Polt wants to clean up the creep tumors, it's gonna take him a long time to do this because Bly's got some really great spread on the map. Not to mention, these creep tumors, kind of like map hacks, you can just see where your opponent is without having your army there, and you don't have to worry about losing anything other than the tumor itself, which is fairly easy to set back out there. I'm not using the phrases overpowered or anything, but it is a really strong asset to have, no question about it. And the more creep spread you have on the map, the more control you're going to have. And the depot breaks here on the right side. Polt was set up with his defenses on the left side. Bly actually gets into the mineral lines. Oh, that one baneling was so good. SCV's now brought down within 1 HP. And frankly, I think the siege tank just killed more SCVs than the Zerglings did. The friendly fire's a hell of a drug, guys. LOL, what? Oh, did I? Wait, oh, wait. Thurman Diet Soda, did you guys gift a sub just to see the email? Hold on, I'll share what it is after. I don't want to make it seem like I'm baiting donations or bits or subs or I will show the email after this game is done. I was just saying for Maple Leaf's sake because he had responded about it. You guys are impatient and curious cats. Curiosity killed the cat, you know, that's the saying. But thank you for gifting the subs nonetheless, I suppose. Now, Zen is a very odd map in terms of base spread. Where do you continue to go past the 4th? Your 5th is not going to be preferable no matter where you take it. But with the creep spread, it's going to be really nice for Bly because you'll see all these attacks coming, ideally more ahead of time than not. Polt's on 3 bases. Well, now establishing 4. This one's kind of exposed, though. And the army's not quite here, so the mutas get on top of this very quickly. I don't think he's going to cause a lot of lasting damage. No, he's going to pull back with the mutas. The Lings can't really just run by this so simply because it's a planetary, but he could make some banelings out of this. You know, like 8 for a sneak attack and roll them into the mineral lines. Although he may need all hands on deck for the defense. This is a huge force Polt is pushing with. This is not something to be underestimated. Tanks up on the high ground too are going to be exceptionally frustrating to deal with. Bly does kill a Thor in the middle of the map, and that's a big pickoff in and of itself. But either abandon ship on the base or get some better positioning, because right now he's not. Oh, this might be enough to actually kill the planetary too. Oh, look, I know there's a fight going down on the right side, but what's Bly's plan with the banelings? Polt sees this coming. Bly takes the right side for this. Oh, that was so sick. Okay, real quick explanation. Bly knew that the SCVs would pulled away. If he went in on the left side, he'd be busy chasing SCVs and dying to the planetary Ibex cannon. By going on the right side, he anticipated the SCVs being pulled away and intercepts them to actually kill 20 SCVs instead of hardly any. And the planetary fortress is at half HP, but that's not as important. He loses a base and he's losing a lot of ground on his side of the map, but those 20 SCVs dead, that's going to leave a mark for Polt. Yeah, he's producing like 4 or 5 at a time, but that's money spent now on SCVs and not on more army units. That was really well executed out of Bly. Every time I hear Rifkin say Diciode, I hear Diet Soda. No, I'm literally calling him Diet Soda. I gave up on trying to pronounce his name years ago. I love this guy to death. He's like one of the nicest dudes, and I'm not doing it to be mean. I just literally gave up, and I just feel like if I say Diet Soda, he knows I'm talking to him. I am not well known for my pronunciation of names. That's not what I'm known for in the slightest. Heartbroke says, did I open up a can of worms? You did, brother. You did. I didn't know about this. He pointed it out to me earlier on Discord. But as I said, I'll share the email and I'll show you guys what we're talking about after this game. I don't want to keep alluding to it because the focus of this really is on Bly and Polt. Bailey's roll in, but the tanks take care of them. They're off of creep. However, there's so few Marines, the Mutalisk should be able to clean this up, I feel. Although maybe not. Ooh, funnel up to the top side. The Mutalisk counts down to 17. But I mean, that's still 17 mutas versus like, what, 3 or 4 Marines on the front lines? Frankly, target firing down the Marines is not preferable. You see him actually bleeding out quite a bit to this, but Polt does die and get cleaned up on the top side of the map. This still leaves Bly at a pretty serious supply disadvantage, and Polt has, of course, continued to clean creep up while this goes on. So the entire southern map vision that Bly had up to this point has been stripped away from him. Same with the top side, because the base went down as well. So really, Polt, through all of this, maybe didn't massacre Bly in terms of workers, but between the resources lost, traded army to army, and the map control that Polt has taken back from Bly, this game is really starting to favor the Terran. I mean, all it takes is a couple of good banelings to change that around, right? So we'll see how this fight goes. You do have the Mutas trying to cut off reinforcements. I think that's a lot better than dogfighting, but they end up running into the Thor, and that's not so good. Bly's now left with 60 some odd supply. Probably about 40 of that's in Lings and Banelings right now. And frankly, when you think about it, that's 40 supply versus 140 supply. Even if the Mutas join into the fight directly, they're not frontline scrappers. They're not useful for this situation. The depots are down. Oh, whoa, what is this lag? Okay, a little bit of awkward stutter there. Hopefully nothing super serious. This fight's not going super well. Polt actually has the upgrade lead. He's got 3-3, so he's taking quite a lot of reduced damage, I guess you could say, from these Lings. That being said, though, tank does survive to go to the high ground, but the Mutas could pick that off. Polt's not pushing in from the bottom right just yet. Now he starts moving in here. That's a dead base for sure. Bly killing 8 SCVs is not that many, but he has disrupted Polt quite significantly, and if he can disrupt the attack here from pushing forward, it'll buy him even more time. But looks like this is finally being cleaned up. The funny thing is you just pronounced it correctly. Wait, what did I say? I literally don't... Dysode? Dysode? Is it Dysode? Is that what I said? I guess there's a 2-minute delay. I'm sitting here waiting for you to respond, and I realize there's a 2-minute delay. There's no point. All those fresh meals go down, but I'm sorry. Bly's like Humpty Dumpty. All the King's horses and all the King's men are not going to put him back together again. He's way too far gone in this game. The army supply is non-existent. The type of supply through ultras will not win him this game. I will remark that I think that if he had ultras and infestors a minute and a half ago, I think Bly would very much still be in the same game with the supplies looking like what they are. But while the ultras may take care of the first wave of Marines, say, Bly still hasn't really taken care of the core problem, and that's Polt continuing to expand. He's trying to stop this planetary. Oh, he's actually gonna pick up the SCVs. That's so clever. So he loses very few to this, but he also can't retake the base just yet. Polt now has to commit to the fight. Fungal growth down here doing God's work, and this is what I was kind of getting into, but there's so many medevacs right now that while those fungal growths in any normal circumstance would have destroyed every single bit of bio, there was enough medevacs to heal each and every unit, so very few actually died. There just wasn't that much left over at the end of the fight. And with the ultras cleaning house, Bly has finally got a little bit of breathing room. But going back to it, again, like, the resources lost versus the income doesn't match up to say that this is okay for Bly to be doing. If Bly's income was entirely red and up here the entire time, yeah, this resources lost is hilarious, but he's winning the game. That's not the case right now. Polt's in a very weird spot too. He's being very active on the map. You can see he's continually dealing lots of damage to Bly, but he's been doing this all from a pretty low SCV count, relying pretty heavily on mules to carry his income, as you can see right now. Oh my god, he's just spiked up to almost 4k income. Okay, maybe not 4k, almost 4k though. But once those mules run out, then he's going to be in this down period again. Planetary Fortress is going to try and hold this. There's a lot of banelings coming in though, so the base is probably dead. Oh god, everything here is probably dead. Polt stacks up! Oh, he loses all the mules and the SCVs! That got really awkward really quick. And if I'm being honest, I'm pretty happy to see Bly's not dead in the game yet. But he's having a really hard time wrestling that lead away from Polt. Because despite damage like what we just saw here, Polt's still the one that's close to maxed out, not Bly. And oh, it just gets tough. He actually said it correctly. He made a clip of this. Thank you. I'll have to watch it after this game for reference. Oh, yeah, Thor there dies. There's actually just been straight up a lot of dead units in this game. I mean, 400 links is always funny to see, but I think it's a lot more devastating looking at 32 mutas. Actually, when you kind of think about it, the cost of those mutas is so great that it might actually outweigh almost 400 dead Zerglings. Rifkin is probably trolling chat. No, look, okay. If there's one thing I'm never going to be able to troll, it's the pronunciation of people's names. Because if I was able to do it correctly in the first place and then say it wrong on purpose, then yeah, that's trolling. I'm just actually inept. Not much of a fine line there. Well, the bases continue to get wrecked. Bly losing more hatcheries. A total of 6 have died, but he does have a counterattack going on. Looks like the Banleys catch some of their retreating SCVs, but more notably, the Ultras kill the Planetary. Polt is actually maybe gonna be in trouble for money soon, actually. He's back to 1 base mining, essentially. There's a few mineral scraps here at the 2nd and the 3rd base, but realistically, if you look, he's almost mined those out. Bly, on the other hand, same situation, but Bly's been in the same situation for a long time now, constantly swapping to the new bases as the old ones get cleaned up by Polt. So my thoughts are, if this comes down to desperate versus desperate, I actually think Bly's in a better position because he's been, well, up to this point, playing in a better position. But oh no, he can't afford to rebuild these Ultras. He wants to use the Ultras to kill all the Marines so the Mutalisks can kill all what's left, but this is still risky to do. He knows it as well. This type of move is about as risky, if not riskier, than a base trade straight up. Anyways, the Muta count is struggling, but he is going to kill the Marines. However, Polt's going to produce like 6 or 7 at a time. So by the time these Marines die, the next wave's out and these Mutas are screwed. And if Bly was close to supply cap, I'd be like, this isn't that big of a deal, but he still needs these Mutas. They have a big role to still play in this game. Bly, by the way, long distance mining. Oh God. Income has just been all over the place for these two. Army, of course, has always favored Polt, but this is what's so crazy about this. When you look at this graph that represents Army over the last 10 minutes of the game, Polt has always been ahead, but Bly has also consistently been behind, which at a quick glance looks like Bly is losing. If you just look at this real quick, Bly's losing this game, right? But he's actually not. He's keeping toe-to-toe. Every peak and every dip matches up until, well, this most recent one. So I just gotta say, it is crazy watching Bly hold on to this game. But I think we're on borrowed time with him. There are still more infestors and more fungals to be wary of. But I don't think he breaks this army. Now that there's marauders in it too. Ultras kind of had a very brief gimmick where, yeah, when it's just Marines and tanks, they could totally take a real fight. But now that there's marauders out to deal the bonus damage to armored and then, of course, just kite and survive fungals, that's off the table. Roy Kyle, thank you for the 48-month resub, brother. Woot woot. Glad you got here for tonight's cast. Make sure you hit the rally boss while you're here, man. Oh, also, we had some subs gifted. So let's not forget to use the bombs on the rally boss, guys. I have 2 bombs at present, so I assume everyone else does as well. Oh, big fungal. Monster fungal. Still. I don't think it's enough. That being said, though, we're still in that situation where Bly is sitting toe-to-toe on army supply. Not in terms of equal, but more so like losing and gaining equal amounts. Like as Polt loses 20 supply, Bly loses 10. And it just continues to stay within the same amount of one another. This is... I've actually not seen a ZvT play like this, like, in forever. I can't even remember the last time I had to measure the army graph because it was relevant to the state of the game. Normally, the army graph is an afterthought. Like, oh, yeah, he got smashed in that fight 5 minutes ago, and here's proof. But so fascinatingly enough, these two have just been separated by this invisible line. And they continue. Look at this. Polt takes a dip, and so does Bly. Bly gets ahead, so does Polt. Like, this is so sick. I don't know who I'm cheering for at this point, because the winner plays Namshar, and a ZvZ or a TvZ are going to be fantastic. Liberators continuing to launch the shots on the Ultras. They get squished out. Thors can stand their ground against an Ultralist. Not many units can do that. The Corruptors here are neat. Does he have a Greater Spire? No way, does he? No, it's just Corruptors, no Greater Spire. Honestly, if Bly actually could sneak out 3 Broodlords right now, that would be pretty epic. But sadly, that's not the case for him. 23 minutes in this game, he's relying primarily on these fungal growths. So when he's out of energy, or these infestors finally get picked off, his chances to fight Polt dwindle significantly. Oh, this is frustrating. These actually have no armor right now. Funny enough, so those Thors are actually very killable by Lings. We'll just need to get like 10 or 12 of them up there. Or catch it with a fungal. That works too. Yeah. Nanoflower thinks he's so clever. GG coming up, he says 2 minutes ago. Watching Stream Raiders makes it easy to tell when the end is coming. Yeah, Nanoflower? How do you feel now, 2 minutes later, huh? Do you feel like a hole, huh? Looks like some Banelings managed to sneak in to try and disrupt the mining. This is where it goes. I think this is why we're seeing the difference in that gap in army. Just to highlight this a bit better for those who haven't already figured it out on their own. Bly, well, granted, not a lot of income objectively, has had objective or comparatively more income than Polt very consistently. And that's why through these fights, he's able to replace his smaller army faster and more efficiently than Polt's been able to replace his army. But that being said, Polt's income has still left him with his bank. His army trades haven't been costing him large chunks of army to lose and needing replacement in the first place. So all things considered, Polt's income hurts, but not so much that he's sweating it right now. He's still on 130 something supply. The Ghost Academy took a long time to get to, but this is probably the best move he can make right now. Not just for the snipe, which would be good against ultras and such, but the EMP, especially if he goes enhanced shockwaves. Bly's entire game hinges on these infestors doing something, and if those get EMP'd, Bly is totally screwed. Three times the army supply and Polt can't close it. But that's the thing. Polt's type of army supply up to this point was still pretty basic, right? Ignoring the Thors, because they kind of are a moot point for this. The Marines and Marauders and Medivacs have been the meat and bones of this army. It's not been heavy on tanks. It's not been heavy on Widow Mines. It's been heavy on these tier 1 units. So now that he's finally getting higher echelon of units, now that he's getting things like Ghosts. We did see some Liberator play briefly, but that's already been shut down. I think as Polt gets the better type of supply, he'll be able to close this out. And that's been the problem. And I agree with you. Even though this was phrased a little bit poorly in chat, Polt has objectively had trouble closing this out. By all means, when you look at the supply, Bly has been unable to reach 100 army supply for probably like 10 minutes now. Yeah, pretty much right there was 100 supply, 7 minutes. That only lasted for like a second. Called out from the past. I know, name and shame, right? Boo, Nanoflower. You smug piece of the Ultras and the Fungals, and I want to highlight again, the Fungals were a really big part of taking this fight, but Bly's over-dedicated and stayed way too long. He loses the Ultras. Bottom right side, Medivacs might go down to these Corruptors, but there's no ground army to deal with the Marines, so Bly's just in the same situation again, where he's just constantly on the verge of death. To be clear, Bly is absolutely on what I can only best describe as borrowed time. I'm going to take a moment here to segue, because this was something I learned briefly before stream. I was on a call with Kara, and we were discussing random things, and we started talking about the movie The Butterfly Effect. You guys remember this movie? It came out years ago with Ashton Kutcher. He could go back to certain points in his life and change things that would affect his current life. I did not know that that movie had multiple endings. I had this ending. I remember watching it. It was an important movie in my life because I liked it a lot. I remember the ending where he sees the girl and they end up not getting together. And that's kind of like just like a sad, but kind of poetic ending to the movie. and I'm just going to say real quick, I know it wasn't the greatest movie. Shut up, guys. That's not the point of this. Kara is telling me about how when she saw the movie, it had a baby killing itself with the umbilical cord be the end of the movie. And I thought she was making this up, and I had to Google it. And it turns out, to whatever versions of time travel you watch the movie, all those stay the same. It's only the end of the movie. There's 4 different endings to this movie. And I have such great aspirations that I want to go watch. I want to go hunt down some DVD version of this and watch all 4 of those endings. But Bly, sorry to note, Greater Spire. It took a long time to get here, but I don't think this is going to cover his butt. We have ghosts now. Snipe is going to snipe off what few Broodlords there are. And unless Bly gets the most heroic fungal growth of all time to cancel the shot on the ghost, you know, cancel the steady targeting, there's no way these Broodlords are going to live to see tomorrow. And even then, there's no Corruptors supporting these. There's no Mutalisks. Vikings could just be made. And like, there's no Hydras on the ground to shoot up. Infested Terrans no longer exist. Microbial Shroud's a huge joke. It really is fungal growths and Broodlords. That's what Bly's army is. And Polt has 3 times the army supply. We're actually borderline at the point now where Polt could just throw bodies at Bly, because Polt has a 15, almost 1,600 mineral bank. Any Marines, Marauders, Ghosts, anything that dies here, he can replace. No issue there. As long as he doesn't give them away for free or for nothing. And by the way, this is a very important base to pressure. Bly's been getting a lot of money from this base. The drones are saturated too. Bly's going to move to defend this, but does that force his hand to be in a bad position? Look at this. Oh, waiting for the fungal. He's going to be so cautious about this. The drones, unfortunately, don't appear to have a way to get out of the base alive. Bottom right. Get him, boys! Get him! Teach him to come around these parts. I don't know why the drone would sound like an SCV. I guess that's more of an SCV thing. Anyways. More Thors, single target mode, big damage with +2. They're going to knock the Broodlords out of the sky because they outrange them by 1. On top of that, you got Ghosts with their steady targeting. Each snipe hitting for 170 damage. 2 snipes to kill a Broodlord. Oh, and the Infestors go down too. I think that's it for Bly, guys. Finally, the tap out. GG. A hell of a set, but Polt takes it.